Welcome to House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Vic the producer, and joining me is NFL staff writer for Sports Illustrated, Gilbert Manzano. Gilbert, the Lions hold on to beat the Rams 24-23. Rams suffer a heartbreaking wild card loss in the Motor City. Just give me your first couple of takeaways from this game.
Yeah, I understand people are gonna be frustrated with the officials, and it was a bad game for the officials all around who seemed to be playing makeup calls throughout the whole game because they had a terrible call where they missed on on the Lions should have been the ones getting that offsides, but it was the Rams in the second half. It seemed like they were trying to make up all the calls. So we're gonna get into the officials, but that's not the entire game. I want to, revisit the final drive for the Rams. What is Sean McVay doing there? Like, either go for it on 4th and 14. I get it's long, but you have one timeout, and you're gonna give the ball back to Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, who they're extra aggressive. They go for it like a pass on second down. That was a mistake, or at least play for the field goal. It was a 1 point game. Get a quick dump off for 8 yards and try Brett Maher, but officials, poor execution on the final drive, a tale of two halves. The defense couldn't do anything in the first half, and they get all the stops in the second half, and the offense couldn't do anything. And we kept talking about it, Victor. Something's gonna happen here where the season long theme of poor execution is gonna come and bite them. Poor kicking game, poor special teams, bad secondary. No, it was not that. It was bad red zone execution for the offense. So it's been a year-long theme with the poor red zone, and it came back and bit them today.
0-3 in the red zone, kicked 3 field goals in the red zone. They didn't get Kyron Williams involved until the fourth quarter, and then he ends up having to leave with a bad hand. I mean, shout out to Ronnie Rivers. He came in and did his thing too. Um, Puka Nakua, 9 receptions, 181 yards, breaking another receiving record. The guy just keeps breaking records this season. But as you talked about, I think that's the biggest frustration Ram fans have right now is with Sean McVay and his game management and also zone, his red zone play calling. I mean, the first red zone appearance, they don't get the ball to Kyron Williams. They throw the ball 3 times and 3 incompletions, so they kick the field goal. The next time they come down, I think they give him the ball 1 time, and then they run the ball another time in the third time they're in the red zone. The Lions scored all 3 times they were in the red zone touchdown. So I mean that was the difference in this game, Gilbert. I mean, I understand the frustration with the ref calls. I saw a lot of people complaining about the refs in the first half for the Lions, and then in the second half, that call against Puka Nakua it should have been it was like 3 calls you could have made there. You could have made a hold, a pass interference, and also a late hit. I mean, all three of those were in play there. But as I said, this all comes down to Sean McVay. You got out coach in this game, which is kind of hard to see to kind of say that when you have Dan Campbell on the other side. And we talked about how aggressive Dan Campbell is, and yet Sean McVay just played a save, which was kind of unfortunate to see.
Yeah, I don't get the thinking on that final drive there. I get it. Things went backwards, and they were all set up pretty well. They were moving the ball. I forget what it was, 3rd and 4. There was a penalty, and then, like you mentioned, the non-PI going to Puka Nakua. But man, play to win. Don't be going safe. You already asked your defense to do a lot by holding the Lions to 3 points. Do your part now, offense, and they couldn't do it, and they were moving the ball down the field. And you know, I got a little mixed results with Kyron Williams because he's a stud running back, but injuries are always an issue with him. So that could be something they got to address in the offseason. Get another running back. Ronnie Rivers did a great job, like you mentioned, but uh, it's not all Kyron Williams' fault because of injuries. You can't really, deal with that or I guess prevent that. But they didn't establish a run, like you mentioned, Victor. And when it was looking so difficult for Matthew Stafford to make plays and he took a bunch of hits, he kept getting beat up. And I get it, Stafford is great, and he pretty much almost got the win there by just throwing a Puka Nakua every other down and getting lengthy completions. But it wasn't the easy, efficient, full, complete performance from the offense. They couldn't, obviously Tutua got a touchdown. DeMarcus Robinson made plays, but when this offense is rolling, it starts with Kyron Williams, and they couldn't get him the ball in the first half. In the second half, he dealt with injury. So, when you finally got him going, it was a struggle there. But fourth quarter and that final drive is going to linger for me throughout the whole off season with Sean McVay. But it kind of felt like, people were giving us some crap here on House of Horns. We're saying, why do you focus so much on the negative? Well, when the playoffs come, you got to execute in the red zone. You got to stop explosive plays. You got to have a clean special teams. You got to make your kicks. And every time Brett Maher had a kick, I think we were all holding our breath.
Everybody was.
Really got him in there, but yeah, it was a close game, and credit to the Lions too because Aiden Hutchinson went off. Jared Goff, for him to do that against his former team was big, and then Dan Campbell to believe in this guy, like that is the difference right there, Victor. You can take it away after this point, but that is the difference. When Dan Campbell said it's 2nd and 8, we got to kill clock. We should probably run the football, but F that. Jared Goff, go and win this revenge game and tell those guys you messed out. And so on I think it was 2nd and 8, they threw it to Amon-Ra St. Brown on an 11-yard completion. The game was over right there, but
Yeah.
good game. Two teams are very talented offensively. Neither side could get the run game going. That was surprising to see. They did not get burned by Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, but shout out to the defense. They held it down, but it got ugly at times in the first half for the defense.
Yeah, and the adjustments that Raheem Morris made in the second half. I mean, they didn't have any pass rush. You finally saw Ernest Jones get going. And guys, if you're on here, stay with us. We'll get your comments. We're just trying to give you guys our thoughts. We'll get into your comments. So continue to send in your comments and we'll respond to them. So yeah, continue to stay with us. But in terms of the defense, they did their job in the second half. I understand that. Remember, we came in talking about how good this Lions offense was, and they lived up to the hype in the first half, and then to keep them to what was it up? I think it was under 20 yards rushing, Gilbert, in the second half. That was really impressive, and so that just goes back to the coaching job that he did. I think this game pretty much comes down to Sean McVay and him, down in the end, not executing. You also, the time management. Why aren't you calling a timeout before the 2-minute warning? Why are you waiting till after and then burning those timeouts in the third quarter, Gilbert, when it was
Yeah.
unnecessary as well? There was no reason. You call the timeout, so what? So you avoid a 5-yard penalty, which you ended up not even converting on. So there's a lot, and we've seen this from Sean McVay. He's a great play caller, but he sometimes gets in his own way, and he did that again tonight. So yeah, Gilbert, and I'll let you respond, and then we can get to these
Yeah.
comments because people are fired up, and rightfully so.
Yeah, everything just seems so difficult for the Rams, and luckily for them, they have Puka Nakua on their side, who had a terrific performance. He broke a rookie record for receiving yards. I think he broke DK Metcalf's record. So that guy's a stud. But that's what we kept saying. When Kyron Williams is the focal point, everything becomes easier. And when you see, Matthew Stafford take a bunch of hits and go into the blue medical tent a couple of times, there was a point he probably wouldn't even come back. It looked pretty bad. Like looked like he was knocked out of the game, but he came back and it wasn't just that. Puka Nakua left for a little bit. Kyron Williams left for a little bit. It was just a rough game all around, and they still had it there. They kept trading field goals, and they kept stopping the line. So, these timeouts are going to be crucial. And then executing in the fourth quarter, getting a red zone touchdown. And for some reason, they kept focusing on Cooper Kupp. Like Stafford wanted to get Cooper Kupp involved, and they kept not being on the same page. So that's something we should really, I guess, talk about on the offseason because I don't know what it was. We got to watch more film on Cooper Kupp, but he just, was really kind of taking a few setbacks this season. But I get it when you're the second number 2 guy. Puka Nakua is going to emerge, but you see Tutu Atwell, you see Demarcus Robinson. For some reason, Cooper Kupp just really struggled to get on the same page with Stafford. So, and you got to also figure out the offensive line. They did a great job, improving, but like Alaric Jackson and Rob Havenstein could not stop Aiden Hutchinson and then Leo McNeil in the middle there. So, it was a rough day all around for the offense, but there were just so many opportunities, regardless of how hard it's going to be. And Vic, at one point, I'm thinking, okay, this is not a good recipe, but hey, if Stafford has to be the hero in his return game, homecoming game, so be it. That's kind of the storyline because Stafford was there for 12 years and he was tough, took a lot of hits in that building. So, hey, maybe it's kind of the right way to do it, but they came up short.
Yeah, and it's hard to see that, but these are growing pains. I mean, you weren't expected to be in this position, but when you're in this position now, Gilbert, you got to take advantage of the opportunities. You can't waste these away, and so that's, I think, what is the most, upsetting for Ram fans. And we'll get to the first comment here is Daniel Calderon. He's like, I'm so pissed, and rightfully so. BC McVay blew it. The passing game was unstoppable, yet he kept running in the red zone, the one place the running game wasn't effective. I would say it was the other way around, where they were passing the ball a little bit too much instead of. I thought they could have used some of the screen there. They could have run a little bit more play action, but the red zone offense was just dreadful in this game. BC says should have gone for touchdowns, and those last two field goals, it just one wins the game.
Yep.
We're with you on that. Henry Camacho, the Lions out physical the Rams. Forget the officiating; they let them play. Hats off to the Lions. They did enough to win. Puka's a stud with some depth in the draft. It'll get better. So there's some positive there from Henry, but he's right. I mean, they were closing out hits, Gilbert. Like I'm all for that. Like if you're not calling it on both sides and you're just letting them play, I'm okay with that. But that's the thing, as you talked about, they were just making up calls as they
Yeah.
went,
Hate
and
that.
that's where we have an issue with it.
Yeah, definitely. Like when you're playing makeup calls and you're trying to figure, okay, which one's this, which play here is gonna get me off the hook, and it's like, there was if you want to just go 1-on-1 and you play that kind of makeup game, that's fine. But then it became like two or three, and it kind of felt like the official was like, okay, are we good now? Are we okay now? Because that first half offsides was so terrible. Like it was obvious. I think it was Ernest Jones. I forget who was the one that moved there, but it was so obvious the Rams were the ones that first moved, and Dan Campbell had the right to be annoyed there because of what happened with the Dallas Cowboys. And football has a funny way of working out. Remember when they were so fired up for being screwed over on the eligible receiver downfield against the Cowboys? They were fighting for the number 2 seed, and the Cowboys are out of it, and they get another home playoff game because they handle business. So they're kind of the number 2 seed. So football is weird like that. It all works out in the end, but the Rams kept playing with fire with the issues there. But yeah, it was a physical game. They set the tone with David Montgomery early. I like them switching back and forth with Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery, but people are gonna harp on Raheem Morris's defense. I get that, but that second half they held it down. They stopped the running game. You mentioned the numbers. Only 3 points for the explosive offense. They did their job. The offense didn't.
Yeah, I'm with you, especially when you end up kicking field goals in the red zone. You're just not going to win that way. Nice talks, LA. It says, I'm going to be honest, the Rams lost, but we would have had a chance to win if the two PI calls at the end of the drive were called. Yeah, unfortunately, but as you said, you need a score touchdowns in the red zone. You cannot, especially against this aggressive of an offense. Henry Camacho, the Rams overcame a lot in this game. Again, with Deb is different. Then Davis Allen was good. Rivers filled in well. Maher did his job. Credit to the Lions, and yeah, like the Lions won this game. We're just
Yeah,
pointing out the fact that the Rams missed on opportunities in this game, and I think if you want to win, and that's part of it. That's part of having to turn over so many players, Gilbert. It was a great regular season in the way they finished, but I think eventually, depth comes into play, and I think that's why it hurt them in this game. I think if they have better depth, as we've talked about with Kyron Williams getting hurt again, it's something that they need to talk. We'll get into it this offseason as we get into what they need going forward. But in terms of this game, yeah, it was it
yeah. You know,
it,
they
it
they
was
have two running backs, Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. They have a bunch of receivers. Jameson Williams, Josh Reynolds stepped up. They got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Stavin Laporta played. They had the offensive line advantage. That's depth right there. Obviously the secondary was up and down for the Lions, but they still got Melifonwu. They got Brian Branch. They got Cameron Sutton, who got beat pretty bad on that touchdown for Puka Nakua, but Liam McNeil, and they got Aiden Hutchinson. So they got a lot of playmakers out there. So maybe that could be a simple way to kind of see this game. Like, hey, you add more depth, you'll play with the big boys next year.
Yeah, and that's a good point by you. BC, I guess, was at Nick Talks LA. Three guys tackled Nakua before the ball arrived, and The one I thought was also the makeup call was, I think, the beginning of the first drive in the second half was the Demarcus Robinson, where it looked like he got interfered with as well,
Yep.
and they didn't call it. So, like I said, I have no problem with it. I think as we talked about, it came down to execution and from McVay as well. Extreme Shaft is back. He's the Lions fan. He says, "Sorry guys, as a Lion fan, it was hard game to watch, but it's nice to see and feel, and I feel it was a good game. It was a good game, like
Yeah.
I said. Like, shout out to the Lions and their fans. Congratulations, you won a game for the first time since 1991 in the playoffs. The monkeys off your back. Goff is, he has, exercised some of his demons against the Rams, and so shout out to them, man. Like, cause they play the game the way we all knew they were. We expected this from the Lions. The Rams just didn't execute and didn't take advantage of the opportunities that the Lions gave them.
Yeah, and Extreme, thank you for coming back. We appreciate the support and also being. I know that you're the opposite end, but you're being fair and you just want to see both sides of it. And I love that, respect that, Extreme. And then also too, like Jared Goff deserves a lot of credit for what he did in the first half. He was well protected in the offensive line, and sometimes it's simple. We kept talking about you put pressure on Jared Goff, he's gonna make mistakes, and there was a few where he got lucky, where he's kind of just say, "I don't know what to do here. Let me just throw the football away." And it could have been a disaster. But that first half, he was dealing there, and the offensive line protected him. But then the second half, credit to Raheem Morris. I think, yeah, Ernest Jones was starting to use a little more in the pressure game, or I guess when it comes to being an extra rusher. But they couldn't get any pressure in the first half, big. So that could be something there. You want to criticize the defense. Aaron Donald. Like I didn't really hear Kobe Turner's name that much today. Byron Young, Michael Hoy. I think
He
Byron
had
Young
a
and Michael
couple
Hoy.
pressures.
Yeah,
Roseboom had a couple pressures.
but it was all in the second half, and
Yeah.
I get it, it's a tale of two halves, but that first half was ugly, and that was a credit to Ben Johnson and the offensive line for the Lions.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of hoped that the Rams would have taken the ball first
Yeah,
and try to score, because that would have put pressure on Jared Goff. But hey, like I said, to me it just comes down to Sean McVay and their issues in the red zone. We have more comments here. Gilbert Danny R says this was a heartbreaking loss, but a promising to see
yeah,
Puka ball out. The future is bright. We
he's fun to
agree.
watch.
Yeah, he is really fun to watch, BC. But I still think they should have gone for half on 3rd and 14, so the fourth
Yeah,
down would have been manageable. And if they do, I'm pretty sure they score at least one touchdown on those two wasted drives at the end. And that's something you talked about, Gilbert.
yeah, definitely. Either kind of get half of it back, and then take your chances maybe on a fourth and manageable, or maybe pray that Brett Maher makes a long field goal. But yeah, those options
Yeah.
were out the window when they couldn't make anything happen on that third down, 3rd and 14.
Yeah, BC is back here. Says this is honestly more embarrassing than
I
the
don't know about
Cowboys
that.
and Packers game. I don't know about that, but I get it. I get the
Yeah,
frustration. I understand why you feel that way. Henry Camacho, remember the playoff loss in 2020 to the Packers that fueled a Super Bowl push in 2021. We'll see who they trade for this offseason, because that's what ended up happening. That fueled them to go and
they
get.
got
They
money.
knew what they needed. You got money. You got draft picks. So yeah, the worm, our guy is
Henry's
back.
the positive guy in the chat today. I like it.
Yeah, the worm. The D was porous, but again managed. The true problem was the failure to convert in the red zone. So he agrees with us.
Yeah.
BC
And
Nakua was
and real quick,
unstoppable.
like, who's
Yeah,
to say they even get the first down and they try to go for a touchdown? Like, they're gonna even come up with a touchdown on the red zone. Like, we don't really know. That's how
yeah,
bad the night is. But hey, at least they could have got a field goal there and then put pressure on Jared Goff to score at the other end. But that's kind of the crappy part. I wanted to see how it would have unfolded if they would have got a first down there. Do you score in the red zone? Do you kick it and then take a chance there with your defense? But we didn't get that.
yeah. And I'm loving all these comments, so I'm gonna go right through these, Gilbert, and you
Yeah.
just give
All right.
me, if you pause me and you let me know
Yeah.
when you want to talk about something. All right, because this is the most we've ever gotten, which I
Awesome.
love.
Love it.
Nakua was unstoppable, 9 catches, 181 yards, should have been way more. BC again, Rams outgained them by 100 yards. Al G fella, a new commenter here. Down the stretch, the referees were atrocious. BC online only allowed one real sack. Stafford tripped once, zero turnovers. You got to win all those stats, and they did that. And that's unfortunate that they didn't come out with the win. Henry Camacho, give credit to Raheem Morris for shutting down the lines in the second half. Too bad he won't be with the Rams next season. Are you expecting him, Gilbert, to get a job during the offseason, or do you think he's back?
I don't know. There's a lot of big names out in the being available right now. Like the Cowboys are might be looking for a head coach at the Rapid, Mike McCarthy. But if they do that, they're gonna take a big swing at either like a Mike Rabel or Bill Belichick or even a Jim Harbaugh. So it's tough seeing that one. We'll see what happens with the Eagles and the Buccaneers. Maybe the loser of that one gets the head coach fired. Maybe Raheem Morris can be in play there, but maybe Raheem Morris to either maybe the Titans I think I had or the Falcons seem like good names to me, especially with the Falcons were favorites to probably land Bill Belichick. If Bill Belichick goes to Dallas, if that becomes an opening, then hey, that's better for Raheem Morris to go to Atlanta. He knows Arthur Blank from his interim stint there.
Yeah, and back to BC, it says, I assume if they lost it because Stafford got sacked 3 times and they turned the ball over a couple times. That did not happen, and I think that's part of the thing. This like um, that's part of the missed opportunities. I think that's the heartbreaking part of this loss. Daniel Calderon, damn, can't believe they missed so many holds as well. Angel Agustin Leon Gorbea says, I'm a Ramser. However, no excuses. Stats do not matter. Detroit won. Henry Camacho. The Rams got a break on the Lions' false start. Manuel Infante says red zone offensive plays were terrible.
Yep.
BC's Goff was allowed to complete 81% of his passes. That's historically bad. Daniel Calderon 0-3 in the red zone. We got Angel Agustin back with Manuel. I agree. Daniel Hoyt was horrid. G. Bernice says awful call on Nakua at the end. Alonso Takanga, the Rams got scary at the end. Will be interesting to see how they can be next season. That's yeah, we'll see what happens this offseason. Maybe the time has come to trade Higby and Cup. I'll
Yeah.
say this, Gilbert. In terms, they extended Higby, so I think he's back for a couple more seasons. I think the thing that's interesting about Cup is we're gonna learn that hamstring injury really never got healthy,
Yeah.
and that he's probably gonna have surgery this offseason.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I'm really wondering what's happening with Cooper Cup. Like to regress this badly. Like even last year when he got hurt in the second half of the season, he was putting up another historical season. Being he was the main guy, the one that Stafford kept targeting, but he was doing it at a record pace. So this fallout to me doesn't add up. It could be an injury thing here, maybe it could be surgery, but I don't know about trading Cup or Higby. Like again, like Henry was talking about, building depth is crucial, and then having leadership with these guys, especially if they could still play, I would not mind. But you got a Davis Allen to maybe take over a little more uh, in the passing game for Higby. We got to see how he is as a polished tight end. Can he block? Can he do everything? Because the tight end position is vital for Sean McVay. And then Cup being number 2 is not a problem for me. Obviously, keep loading up there. I don't know if it's Tutu Atwell being the answer. I don't know about Demarcus Robinson being the answer. Like, I think you got to load up on maybe a one really quality number 3 guy you can rely on. And then obviously for me, I just need another number 2 guy at the running back because Kyron Williams, to me, he struggles with injuries. He plays physical. He's a smaller back, but maybe that could be the reason why he fell in the draft a little bit. I love his game, but you got to get another guy. I think that's why you see Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery doing well.
Yeah, if you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We are giving away a Puka Nakua jersey once we hit 1,000 subscribers. So
Yes.
if you're new here, I understand you're frustrated with this loss, but don't forget we got plenty of content coming for you during this off season, which begins on Tuesday for us with a kind of like going back and reflecting on the season, and then we'll get started on going forward with the off season as well, Gilbert.
Yeah, we'll definitely break all that down. They got, I think I checked, they have about $44 million in cap space this offseason. They have a first round pick for the first time in a long time, so it should be an intriguing offseason. Also, too, if they lose Raheem Morris, who will be a defensive coordinator. So a lot of things to get to, but for right now, we'll try to answer the best as possible for the future.
There we go. Let me continue on with these comments here. We're trying to get everybody involved here. Don Robinson says Maybe had no business punting near the end of the fourth
Yep,
quarter. You have to try to win the game at the end.
totally
BC
agree.
Cup and Robinson didn't do enough to get open. Combined catches 8 for 71. That'd be what you expect. from one, not both. Yeah, he ended up with what, 27 yards on 5 catches. That's not gonna get you. That's not gonna win you. Lashaw Ruffin, they did good. Daniel Kelder and Brian Burns incoming. He's a free agent. We'll see if the
Yeah,
Panthers let
they
him
wanted
out.
him.
I saw some trade proposals out there in terms of Max Crosby might want out of
Oh
Las
wow.
Vegas.
But
So we'll
real
see.
quick on Brian Burns, if the Panthers just let him walk after two trade deadlines of teams wanting Brian Burns, and you kept saying no and no, and then he walks, and that's a really really bad look for the franchise. So it might be tough to
Yeah.
get Brian Burns.
And we'll see. I mean, maybe the new regime doesn't. We don't know what's going to happen this offseason, but we've seen things happen, and we'll see if. I mean, they could just franchise tag him at this
Yeah,
point. You know, Rick Diaz, what a good game. The Rams and the Detroit Lions close game. It was the best game of
yeah,
the weekend so far. I mean, we talked about it. The other three were blowouts. Yeah, they weren't great games to watch. BC Lions had one player whenever Packers had 29, Rams 23. They lost to a team that was 1-12 beforehand. He says, can't understand why Maverick doesn't run the ball in the red zone. Neither can we. He's just hard headed about that. He's a pass first guy, unfortunately. And I mean, he's been great. He's got a Super Bowl with the Rams, but
what
has
happened
been
to the jet sweeps too? I didn't see too many jet
yeah,
sweeps
I'm
lately.
not
Just
one.
one
I saw
terrible one.
one which was terrible to Puka Nakua, which did not work out. So Rick Diaz says Green Bay Packers are going to play the 49ers and Levi Stadium. That's going to be a good game. I don't know who's going to win, but I think the 49ers should win that game. We'll
Yeah,
see. The Packers are playing great right now, and I just don't see anybody in the NFC, to be honest, that can uh, play with the 49ers right now. But we'll see. I mean, that's why they play the games. Giancarlo says, "Are you still giving away the Puka Nakua?" Yes, we are.
yes, we
We
are.
still are. As long as we can get to, we're still trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So even during the off season, until we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll give away the Puka Nakua jersey. That doesn't. We're
Subscribe,
not gonna.
subscribe, subscribe. Tell your friends.
Yes, yeah. Tell your friends. Be a compa. Tell a compa. And subscribe. Don Robbins and Brian Burns is not that dominant. I
Yeah,
mean, he
he
hasn't
had
had a
a
lot of help.
yeah. I was gonna say he had a so-so season. Derek Brown, the defensive tackle, kind of overtook Brian Burns as the best defensive player in Carolina. But besides those two guys, there was not a lot of help on that team.
Yeah, Rick Diaz says the Cleveland Browns 48-14. They lost. They lost. Kansas City beat Miami. What happened to Miami? They were talking so much. I mean, that's the way the playoffs go sometimes, man. Like it's all about matchups. AMS says, "Are we going to see the old Cup? And what should we do with his large contract next year?" I mean, that's a good question, Gilbert.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, that'll be something we'll talk about
yeah.
this off
I
season.
was gonna say let's tease it for the next show where we review the offseason, and
Yeah. We'll
we'll check
use this
into the
question.
contract.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
use this question AMS and as one of those to get the off season started. Don Robinson, Brian Burns is not dominant for the money he's going to get paid. Well, we'll see. I mean, that's the one thing. Edge rushers and quarterbacks are the ones that get the most money, right, Gilbert?
yeah. That's the way the game is. Get pressure and have a good quarterback.
So we got Rick Diaz here. Let's go 49ers. Let's go. Good evening, 49ers. Time for some photos. So we even have 49er fans
Hey,
in here as well. Hey, everybody's
welcome,
welcome.
Rick.
It says G Berugisi says Morris will be back. Too many bigger names out
Yeah,
there. Well,
that's what
yeah,
I'm afraid of. G.
yeah. BC, we need better personnel on defense, especially the secondary. They barely pressure Goff, only 2 sacks, also tripped on his own. So yeah, and then we have the warm here. It says Stafford proved once again that he's an Iron Man. I thought for sure he was out of the game when he got smashed dirty. Do you want to keep going with these comments, Gilbert, or do you want to get into some more of this game breakdown of this game?
Yeah, I'll kind of give a little more, and then we'll kind of get back to the comments. I don't mind. These comments actually help me kind of go back and forth, but yeah, it's gonna be an interesting off season, and to kind of give you like a summary of the whole season, like 3-6 bye week, everything looked pretty bad, and then they get that missed field goal from Jason Myers against the Seattle Seahawks to sweep the Seahawks at SoFi Stadium, 17-16, and then and there we look back, and this game at first was kind of a little reminiscent of the Baltimore game in overtime. Remember, they were going back and forth. Defense went out the window, and that's the way the first half was going with the Detroit Lions. And then obviously things changed. the offense slowed down, the defense picked it up, and it wasn't high scoring. I think the under hit here. I think it was about 50 and a half, the total line. But it just kind of felt like a game where, yeah, we really like the way the Rams are performing. Explosive offense, a good enough defense, special teams, kind of forget about it for right now. They're scoring enough points. And, we kept harping on the red zone problems, the game management issues with Sean McVay, make Kyron Williams a focal point, and then everything else will become easy. You know, we were trying to, overlook the long snapper issue, the special teams issues, the kicker issue. So, you know, at the end of the day, we could definitely harp on a bunch of negative things here, and so we're not really surprised about this outcome because we saw it for most of the second half of the season. But hey, to get here to this point where you were 10-7, 45 million in the with cap space, and that doesn't even include maybe getting rid of some contracts and creating more cap space, getting a first round pick. So, overall, it was a good year, and we could harp on the officials all day. We can harp on all the missed opportunities, but I'm okay with going back with some of these comments here.
Yeah, no, and talking about that too, Gilbert. I mean, no one expected this coming into the season. They surprised everybody. They end the season 10-7. Now you need to build on this, Gilbert, because it's hard to get back to the playoffs as we see. I've told you it's always, five new teams make the every
Yep.
year. Five new teams make the playoffs, and so if the Rams are going to make the playoffs again next season, they need to reload it once again. I mean, it's not going to be easy. People are now, they're going to have a second place schedule now, Gilbert, which is also makes it tough for you to go and surprise some of these teams. I mean, they had a tough schedule at the beginning of this season. We talked about it. If they get through the beginning of this the season, they can make a run at the playoffs. They did that. They went 7-1 to end the season, and they got into the playoffs. So that's the thing too, is like don't be satisfied with what you accomplished this season. Continue to build on. Now you get 12 draft picks, build on that as well. Make sure that you're able to hit. You're not going to be able to hit like you hit last season. Maybe you can, but you can't always count on that. So if you can get some starters out of it and then sign some free agents where you need, like, go and get some defensive backs, go and get some linebackers to help out Ernest Jones, then you should be back in this spot and perhaps hosting a playoff game next season.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the good and bad about this game. Like it's like you had an opportunity to make some noise, and then at the back of your mind, you're thinking like it's never that easy every year. Like you might not come back to the wild card round next year. Like that's the thing about football. Like people expect a good team to be good the following year, but like you mentioned, five new teams that didn't make the playoffs the year before makes it. So it's a lot of change in the NFL. So the tough part is to sustain a winning franchise. But with the Rams, we've seen it with Sean McVay, and now we're seeing it in a different way. They're trying to build through the draft and get younger. They did it with the big names, the trades, trading away your first round pick, and they were able to sustain it to be, I think they only missed the playoffs twice in Sean McVay's first 6 years. So that was about four postseasons now. Year seven, he makes it back to the playoff, and it feels like a new core. So yeah, keep building and don't get complacent. Also, same thing with Sean McVay in his coaching staff. He has to kind of figure out, okay, what went wrong in the red zone, what went wrong uh, down the stretch. So it's all about who's the one kind of leading the charge here. And I saw some stuff that Sean McVay was trying to experiment with some pre-snap motion. There was these weird kind of runs, like how guys usually like to go back like from one sideline to the other sideline. They were going from like a couple of steps to the next hash or the next hash. I'm like, okay, that's kind of a weird little wrinkle. So he's always trying to try new things, and that's the good thing about Sean McVay. But obviously, you got to go back to the drawing board and work things out. But again, it's a promising start. They're a year ahead. I think that's the part people should remember. And now with the cap space in the first round pick, and they're really set up for a bright future. But hopefully, they kind of go off of what they did with Steve Avila, making him the first pick of the second round. Keep building the trenches because Kevin Dotson's a free agent. The tackles are a little shaky, and you could definitely improve that area.
Yeah, and to your point, here's Henry Camacho says, I've been a fan since 69. I've seen it all, the ownership, the management, the coaching. This ain't my dad's Rams. That's why I'm optimistic. And as long as you have that the money there with Cronky, you're gonna be in the mix. I think anything that Sean McVay and Les need, he's gonna provide them. So it's kind of like, and we've talked about this, Gilbert. You're in LA, you're competing with the Dodgers. The Dodgers just went and got Shohei Otani. You're gonna have to go and get some names as well. I mean, yeah, you have Matthew Stafford, but I think they're gonna go big name hunting this offseason. And so don't be surprised if they're not in on some names, even via trade. I just wouldn't pass it because they're back to, they know what they need now.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, like, and I know people. I think I saw. Might as well, if you don't mind skipping here, Vic,
Yeah,
because Daniel already has like what they need, and I think it is another wide receiver, definitely a safety, a cornerback, and an edge rusher. So, they were very explosive offensively, but you can still find a lot of issues on offense, and then defensively, I think that's where I want to give Raheem Morris a lot of credit. He made it work with what he had. It wasn't the most talented group, but you saw some of the issues starting to catch up at the end with the secondary. You didn't have Jordan Fuller tonight. Uh, the Michael Hoyt experience might be kind of coming to an end. He could be a good a good rotational piece, and I thought that was gonna be the case this year, but they never really made the change there because it's a year they wanted to pay the bills and pay the tab. They got Byron Young, that worked out. They got Kobe Turner, but it's a lot of holes they need to fill or get some more depth, and also too, like, we shouldn't just assume Aaron Donald's coming back because they made it to the playoffs. This guy's been flirting with retirement for the last few years too.
yeah, and then talking about that, I mean, what is Michael Hoyt doing covering, Laporta on that touchdown? It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, that's part of it too. You run into that issue is because, this was supposed to be a gap year, and so, they what Raheem Morris, I understand there wasn't a lot of pressures, or they only got to golf twice, but there's only so much you can do. He was pretty much, duct taping this defense along, with Aaron Donald, Ernest Jones, and so he should get a lot more credit. I get it. And they were able to develop Byron
Yeah.
Young and Kobe Turner and some other guys. Like, you have a Kilo Witherspoon as a free agent, and then this gets to the comment here. It will, from G. Do you think they will re-sign Dotson? That's going to be hard as well, Gilbert, because we've seen that the Rams don't pay offensive linemen outside of Joe Noteboom, who's also can be a cap casualty this offseason. Like, it's gonna cost him from what do we say? Something where it'll be something like 4 years to was it 79 million or something we saw for.
Oh, and
And it,
PFF.
yeah, from no, I think it was from Yahoo. So
Mm.
that's what they're projecting. We'll see. He was one of the best guards this season. So they'll get first shot to resign him, and we'll see. I mean, uh, that'll be something that they need to consider. But as we talked about, they just don't believe in paying offensive linemen. So you might just see them, go and get offensive linemen and hope they hit like they did with Steve Avila in the third round.
Yeah, they might stick to the philosophy there. And again, it's all about priority. Like, hey, where do you want to use your money? If it gets too expensive to keep Kevin Dotson, then I would not be surprised if they move on. I've seen this too many times in the NFL. I've covered the league long enough where, like, you think there's guys who are going to be cornerstone pieces and they become free agents, and like, hey, they might think that guy's not good enough, or hey, he's not worth the money, and they move on for different reasons and they find different homes. So and especially the way they kind of got Kevin Dotson in the last minute, and it turned out to be better than expected. But he's not going to be a priority, so I would not be surprised if he walks. But then you better have a good backup plan. You better draft somebody. You better sign somebody. It's all about making upgrades and improvements. So I think that's the way they should focus. And in terms of the draft, you got to figure out where they're going to be. But they're probably going to be maybe in the
I
in the
think it was
20.
like 21 or 22, somewhere in that range. So it's going to be in the early 20s where they'll be picking.
Yeah, so
I,
if wide receivers and quarterbacks go heavy in this draft because there's a bunch of them, maybe a tackle falls there. There's a bunch of good tackles too that might be top heavy, but maybe they get kind of that last premier guy. If not, then maybe go for like a cornerback. You need a DB, but I don't know. I think they need an answer also left tackle, and Aiden Hutchinson going off tonight definitely reminded me of that.
we have Steve London here. I am disappointed that this team outperformed this expectation this season. I'm looking forward to next season. We have our guy Delbert Salgado says, well, fellas, we overachieved and bounced back in the playoffs. Who would have thought the future is bright? Ram fans since '58.
Yeah.
Buenos por vida. I'm out. Hey, thanks for always checking in with us, Delbert. We appreciate it. Um, What else do we have here? Bet on the Rams. One. Whoever bet on the Rams. Yeah, it was the line was three, Gilbert, 3.5. So
Oh
if
yeah, I didn't
you,
even think about that. Yeah,
yeah,
at least we got the plus there.
yeah. So there you go. Uh, here's G again. Is that it could be worse? We could be the Cowboys. We have a great future, a great coach, GM, and a young core. So there's positive to uh, to kind of take away from this. So that's really cool. Um, what else do we have here? Just trying to go through. Rick Diaz, please go away. So let's go 49. We have Rick Diaz. Rick Diaz is in the comments. I think he's trolling all the Ram fans. Steve London says, I agree with the concerns regarding the lack of trust in the running game in the red zone. I was a bit bothered by it, to be certain. So there's also that as well.
Hey,
Uh,
Rick told me hello, so I like him. But yeah, he's
yeah,
probably messing with people today.
yeah, here we go. He says, let's
What's up,
go
Rick?
49ers. Yeah, so Rick is in the comments here hitting up everybody. So we love it. I just want to make sure I get everybody who's been with us for the season. We'll continue on during this off season. So I want to make sure we get everybody in here. All good things is Hoy needs to go. He got burned everywhere. Can't tackle for nothing. Too slow to cover. Not skilled to, and it's not his fault. I'll say this, Gilbert. It wasn't his fault. He was brought in to be a defensive tackle. Got moved over. I thought he did a great job for what he was asked to do. That's not on him to be asking him. But that's
Yeah.
just the way it happens sometimes. You have to, wherever the team puts you, you have to do the best you can do.
And there was a lot of poor tackling all around too. I know they held them to 3 points, but there was some moments where they could have had some better tackling to prevent like a first down. So it's a young group, and to your point earlier, Vic, about just kind of adding more and not settling to make the playoffs. Nothing's giving for next year, but they need to add more depth because they got to really develop that special teams too. And then when you have a lot of young guys playing, you got to polish up the tackling. So all these little mistakes that we saw coming, it really kind of bit them today. But again, they weren't supposed to be in this position after 3-6 or after 5-12 a year ago. So a lot of room to improve. And if you look at it from that point, like they're a year ahead. Maybe it makes Rams fans feel better, but the tackling was definitely a big problem tonight.
Yeah, and we gotta go soon, Gilbert. So I wanted to, just get Michael Armenta in here.
Yeah.
He's been with us lately. So hey, Compas, I'm but proud of my Rams. He also said, I'm disappointed but proud of my Rams. So, uh, is there a reason? One more here. Is there a reason why Rams never spend on special teams? I think they prioritize certain positions, right, Gilbert?
Yeah, and I think before they spent a lot of money on the top guys, so before they had too much money to the top guys, so they couldn't really focus on special team like aces. That's the key word for these special teams contributors. Now it's the opposite. They have the young guys to develop to play special teams, but they're needed to play starting positions on defense and offense. So that's why this core group here, this 2023 group, they're going to be one more year season. They know their roles, and then you bring in the next wave of newcomers to focus on special teams, and maybe that's what I'm kind of curious to see what happens with the special teams coordinator. Do they fire him, or do they feel like, hey, you know what? We understand the circumstances here. We didn't give you a lot of room to work with or develop these guys here because a lot of them needed to play. Let us focus on getting some special teams aces here, and then we'll figure it out. So I don't know if Sean McVay is going to be that patient. He was not patient at all last year with his staff and fired pretty much everybody. But I think that's part of the reason. They were too young, and then the first one, like they just really were top heavy.
It'll be interesting to see, but if you see one of those signings where you're like, why is this person getting
Yeah.
money? You'll be understand that it's probably for special teams, and just remember that this offseason. If you see a couple of names where you're like kind of scratching your head, just remember that maybe he's a special teams person, and that's why they're bringing them in. So just keep that in mind because a lot of people every year I see this, and people are like, wait, why are they bringing this person in who doesn't who do, he we don't need another backup running back. We don't need another backup cornerback. And it's because they're there for special teams. And this is when you start to notice those type of players is when it's kind of like with offensive line. They're good until they start getting penalties.
Yeah, and then everybody should have the Puka Nakua mindset where he's just like, "Hey, I just came here to block and do my job well and play special team," and then it became a superstar role. So
There you go.
if they have that mindset there, they never know. But yeah, special team is so vital, but often overlooked.
All right, Gilbert. So we're on to the off season. You know, we said everything that we needed to say about this Lions and Rams game. You know, Rams lose a heartbreaker here. Uh, and so the off season begins for them. And so on Tuesday we'll have our live show. That'll be our end of the season show. On Wednesday we'll go over what, you know, some of the things that we like, what we didn't like from the season, and then we'll start looking forward to the off season. So for now, Gilbert, we'll see everybody on Tuesday. Like I said, thank you to everybody. I mean, we made such a run here in terms of this page in the last couple months. I think we added like 250 subscribers. So shout out to everybody who hit the comments today. That's awesome to see. I understand the season is over, so there's a lot of disappointment. But honestly, I can't wait to continue to, you know, talk to people. It's been awesome to start this community for the past month, for the past year and a half. So you know, I can't wait till Tuesday. The off season begins, and now comes I think the favorite part of the season for most fans is because they love talking about the off season.
Yeah.
This is where we get a lot more, you know, rumors started, and so I can't wait for this off season, especially after the one they had last season where there was a lot of gloom. You didn't know what was going to happen, but it's just I can't wait to see what we have for the fans this off season, Gilbert.
Yeah, thank you for that. All good things. Shout out to the Worm too, very supportive here of House of Horns. And yeah, and I want this to kind of become like we just, we disappear and we don't talk to each other until what training camp rolls around,
Yep.
or maybe seldomly with the draft or whatever. But I think maybe yeah Wednesday we'll kind of do our end of the season wrap up show, and then maybe Tuesday, maybe try to aim for another guest like we did with Kirk Morrison to help us break down 2023 and look ahead as well. So we try to have a busy week with content, but we don't want to disappear. We'll try to maybe do an early look at the scouting combine, people who are going to be there, and then how that could affect the Rams. The Rams rarely go to the scouting combine, but things could be different. And then we got the free agency, you got the draft, you got OTA. So we're going to try to be around as much as possible because we like the support that we had, in the past few months, and we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So we appreciate everybody for jumping in. We keep growing here at House of Horns. So again, the best way you can help us out is to tell people to subscribe or just keep doing what you're doing with these comments here. People liking the videos, things like that. So we see the numbers is increasing, so that's awesome too. But you want to do a little more extra to help us out and grow the network here on Compas on the Beat and House of Horns. Check out the link and the links in the description. We got a PayPal donation link to help us, buy equipment, and then make more content. And we also have a website with merch for Compas on the Beat merch. And I definitely got to start making House of Horns merchandise and put that on the website. They'll be coming in the off season, but we made a lot of improvements like the Rams did this year two for House of Horns, and much love to everybody. But we really appreciate all the support.
Yeah, it was great. We have game down sites here. Great season, great job, gentlemen. Thank you. We really appreciate it. We try to give you guys the best content that we can put out there. And honestly, Gilbert, that's the other thing too. I mean, we're going to Super Bowl Radio Roll, so we're last year we did an episode from Radio Row in Arizona, so we're hoping to do that again. Maybe we can sneak in a live show on, either Monday of Radio Row. So stay
Yeah.
with us. Like I said, just because the season is over for the Rams, the season is just beginning for us because the off season is one of the favorites for fans because now we get to speculation season and what players are they going to bring in. We still have it's the NFL is year round. So
Yeah.
last season I think people were kind of down just because of how the season ended, but now with the improvements that we've seen from the Rams, I think there's a lot of people that are going to be tuning in a lot more, Gilbert.
Yeah, and check out everything we do on Combat on the Beat. That's where we talk all NFL, all 32 teams. Obviously, we'll still talk a little Rams, but not as much. But we see familiar faces and usernames on Compas on the Beat. So all football, some banter, just talking random stuff with the Compas too. So here it's all House of Horns, but we do a little bit of everything on Compas on the Beat, and it's all connected. It's under the same network, and we keep trying to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, all good things. We're gonna save this question for Wednesday. So check back in with us, and I'll make sure that we get this one as well as the other question that was asked earlier too for Wednesday. We want to get into it just because we're running out of time. Gilbert's got to go do a couple stories for Sports Illustrated, so he gave us 50 minutes, which is awesome. So, again, can't wait for Wednesday. We'll be back. Make sure you check back in with us, and we'll give you guys. We'll be talking about the wrap up to wrap up the season for the Rams.
Yeah, and before we head out, it'd be awesome if maybe in the off season we could find a way to get together with people and do a live show. That'd be awesome. That's one of my goals I want to do here with House of Horns. But that's something for another day. And I really appreciate all the support. And it's time to get going. It was a heartbreaker. It was tough, but a lot of promising results for the Rams in 2023. It was a fun year. It was a fun team to get behind. Everybody kind of likes an underdog story. The Rams were the heavy favorites for a long time with their super team, and now it's the other way around. It was pretty cool to see Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua, and see Les Snead getting all the praise in the world for hitting on this fifth round draft picks. Seeing what Sean McVay did with this young group, seeing Puka Nakua, man, I'm still picturing Puka Nakua jumping up like he's Michael Jordan for a reception in that Lions game. So it was a fun game, fun season, a lot of great players. We'll see what happens with Raheem Morris, but we will not disappear. We'll still be around the off season. But on that note, ya nos vamos. Pues, vámonos.